Um, yeah, you can begin.
Okay, hello, good evening, and Assalamu alaikum. I welcome all of you to a webinar by Always, Small Business Growth Through Effective Networking. So before I start the panel discussion formally, let me share about the Always. Always is a B2B marketplace which is enabling women-owned businesses globally. It's a B2B ecosystem which not only connects but also offers tailored services such as product hunting, digital marketing, and growth strategies. In a nutshell, it's a turnkey solution offering end-to-end support to empower women-owned businesses around the globe. And we also offer different training sessions to guide women entrepreneurs for business awareness and development. My name is Juveria Asad, Chief Operating Officer of Elway, social entrepreneur, mechanical engineer, optimism coach, and author. Ladies and gentlemen, networking serves as a linchpin for our growth in small businesses, acting as a gateway to realm of opportunities and collaborations. Enables women entrepreneurs to access vital resources from funding to mentorship and fosters partnerships that amplify their impact. Through networking, small businesses can expand their customers base, build industry credibility, and stay alongside of evolving market dynamics. But how to use this effective tool for networking? And what are the challenges usually women entrepreneurs face while collaborating? So discuss all these constraints, we have invited skilled and experienced mentors with diverse persona to share informative insights about networking. Mr. Saeed Zain Ali and Hamid Mahmood. Welcome. So before I start the panel discussion, let me share the profound profile with you guys. Mr. Saeed Zainali, he's a startup advisor and business development consultant dedicated to bridging the gaps in the entrepreneurial journey. His passion lies in guiding startups through the transformative journey from concept to commercialization, serving as the crucial link that connects vision to realization. Leveraging his extensive global network, he empowers his portfolio companies to expand into new markets, forge valuable connections, and transcend geographical boundaries. And Mr. Hamid Mahmood is a digital consultant serving multiple business communities for the last 15 years, focusing on their growth and success through successful digital transformation. Hamid is among the founders of world 10 top 10 service providers in the digital industry, HTML Pro, Ecom Development, NYC, and Software Pro. He's currently serving as a CEO of XCOM Development NYC. Hamid is a mentor at platforms like IndieWise and Della Leaders Club, and voluntarily help students, freelancers, and young entrepreneurs for a successful roadmap in their careers. So I really impressed by your profile and welcome both of you for this session. So I will start from Said. My first question will be related to significance of networking, because if we are want to use any tool, we should know what are the benefits of that particular tool. So can you elaborate more that how to networking plays a key role in the small journey businesses and what specific benefits you have witnessed so far?
Okay, thank you so much for having me. Pleased to be here with you guys. So I think in a lot of businesses and industries, the relationships drive a lot of business. At the end of the day, having a strong network is the strongest asset one can have as they're starting a business or growing their business. So having a network can help you in many ways, such as opening doors for you, creating access for you into customers, but also beyond that, it can help you to stay on top of the trends in your industry, have access to information that you might not actually see online, and also kind of being in with the beat with your ecosystem and industry. Plus, when you're building a network, basically, it's really a give and take. So you are being useful to the people around you, and they a lot of times end up helping you or opening a door for you at some point of life. And really one looks at this from a benefits to all perspective. And it's very important. You want to have a very strong network. You want to have a diverse network, and you want to have a network which basically grows with you, because as you're building your career, people in your network also, they're making progress in their career. So it's a journey that you start, but it can only get better and stronger as you build it. It's very important. And I think especially for people that want to start small businesses or startups, it really comes in handy, because generally speaking, people do business with people that they know, they're familiar with, and they like.
Okay. As you mentioned, diverse networking. So I will ask Hamid that small business often face resource constraints because, of course, they don't have so many, options in terms of resources and everything. So how can effective networking help in overcoming these challenges and accessible, valuable resources to have diverse networking, as mentioned by Said?
I'm sorry, Javier, I lost for a moment. Can you repeat your question again?
As mentioned by Mr. Said, that we should small business owners should have some diverse networking, but definitely they often face resource constraints. They have limited resources. So how can effective networking help in overcoming these challenges and accessible, valuable resources?
Thank you so much. First of all, we need to understand that where do we network? The number one thing that we need to understand as a business entrepreneur, so if you're talking about female entrepreneurs right now, you have to choose your niche, right? I'm writing a book on that, and the chapter number 1 is about your aptitude. The chapter number 2 is about selecting your niche. That means by evaluating yourself, who you are, what do you want to be, what's your passion. After you've decided that, okay, you have concluded to maybe set up a business, or you want to grow further in your career in maybe C-level jobs, you find a niche. Okay, I want to be really best in digital marketing. I want to be really best in Amazon. I want to set up a business for maybe private label or etc. Whatever you want to achieve as a career in your entrepreneurship journey. Once you have decided that, then you should only network in those areas. That's number one. And nowadays, it's not mandatory that you have to be present at every single conference, at every single location, due to time constraints, due to physical constraints, due to like you have to travel, you have your job to do, or maybe you have your client work to do. What we have seen, there are communities available for everything that you're doing right now. What I would suggest, find a couple of YouTube influencers in your niche. So if I want to be, let's say, an expert in digital marketing, okay, or if I want to set up my career as an entrepreneur in digital marketing, or I want to set up a digital marketing agency, okay, I find a couple of influencers who talk about digital marketing, and maybe a couple of influencers who talk about business setup for digital marketing. Okay, I'm covering that over there. Then you're using your social media, right? I would suggest that use your social media to only follow the community where you find attractive, and you find, okay, this is my niche, this is my passion, and these are the right people or the mentors who are speaking about it. So following the right people from there as well, of your niche, could be like, if you're good in SEO, probably follow Neil Patel. If you want to set up your digital marketing agency, then probably follow Josh Nelson, or you can follow me as well. We do a lot of hustle over the Facebook, or I'm writing a book, or I do a lot of YouTube as well, right? So depending on what you're trying to achieve, follow your social media stars or mentors, and from there, join their internal communities, right? So by joining their communities, you get to involve in their daily operation, and without investing so much, you actually get to understand what's going on, and they might give you some public communities where you can post your questions or whatever is in your head. For example, at Seven Figure Mindset, the community in Facebook that we have, we give like free suggestions to all the entrepreneurs who come publicly to share their thoughts, right? And then we have paid boot camps. Whoever can afford like some amount, so they can join our paid boot camps, or they can join our movement as well, where we are putting a lot of resources. But even if you cannot afford, then there are free communities available, free content available. You should definitely follow those to save the time and money as well.
Okay, so basically you're saying that existing at relevant platforms and community is important to brand your products or services. Okay, so I will take this point to say that
Not to brand, not only to brand, I'm sorry,
services and products, whatever
actually
you're offering.
to actually understand, right? So first, there are two steps. First is you have to understand what steps you have to take to emerge or grow your digital marketing company or maybe your startup company. And then the step number two could be that you're hunting your clients to relevant communities. For both, yes, you have to choose your niche, you have to choose
Yes.
your aptitude and find the relevant communities. Because if you open yourself to every country and every community, you won't be able to actually find out, okay, I'm just wasting my time and here and there.
We need to find a gap. Okay, so I will take this point to you, Saeed, that as you mentioned that okay, now because everyone is working for the maximize the clientele, right? So what types of networking strategies you think that have proven more successful for a small business looking to expand their reach and customer base?
Of course, I still like think, you have to look at networking from at least two different levels. Sometimes you're networking with the goal of attracting customers or channels to customers, but sometimes you're networking with your peers in the business for the sake of learning from them or sharing experience. So one has to be very mindful of the purpose of the networking. And depending on the type of networking you want to engage in, there are communities and conferences, virtual or in-person conferences that people can attend and they can talk to each other on the sidelines and make friends. At the end of the day, if you want, it depends also what you want to do with your network. If the network is just, a light touch connection, you need to have many of them in order to be able to get something meaningful out of a few of them. However, if your goal is to really like engage in business or build long-term partnerships with them, then you probably need more than a few touch bases or touch points with someone who you're trying to attract and get into a network. Another very important aspect when it comes to networking, I think, is personal branding, especially for like female entrepreneurs as they're getting into, their space. They want to have, their thoughts expressed in a safe way and have that, voice out there. So when they're reaching out to people, it increases the likelihood of getting basically a response out of them. So I think if you want to do many to many networking events, industry events are the best in my view. But also we want to do some targeted networking. I find LinkedIn messaging to be very powerful, and especially if you have a decent profile, and also if you're very reasonable in your ask. I always tell my startups, as I advise at Next Canada and the Manitoba Technology Accelerator at DMZ, because they always try to, especially like the foreign entrepreneurs that I help that come to Canada through startup visa, they always want to, sell in the first message that they send out to someone. And I'm like, it's too much. You're overwhelming that person. So you want to be very open. You want to be very humble. You want to be vulnerable, almost like letting them know that you don't know a lot of things, and also that your ask is only to kind of get a call or have some sort of a meeting, and because that's your first goal, like that's how you qualify someone to have a virtual call or a Zoom call. And it's a lot like a dating. So you reach out to a lot of people, you just don't feel it, right? But sometimes, there is, you go on a call and you talk to someone for 10, 15 minutes and you instantly realize, oh, there is a possibility of doing some further business or some further involvement, collaboration with that person. But That being said, and I understand that a lot of times resources are very much constrained, but one, I don't think it's a great idea for someone to just focus on building connections for the sake of benefit. At the end of the day, I'm a firm believer in like doing well by doing good, and just giving back and things like that. It's very much a big value to me, and it really pays out because if you go to talk to someone, if you have an expectation, chances are you'd be disappointed. But if you go in just like you're in the flow, you are in the space that you want to build a network in, and a lot of times the connections end up being a lot more genuine and a lot more natural, if I may. So that's I feel like I think for virtual, definitely LinkedIn is my go-to. Well, there might be industries that like Facebook communities and stuff would be helpful, but still, I think like any serious business person has a presence on LinkedIn, so that's great. But if you want to like network with customers, it depends if they're businesses or regular customers. You want to like build, like you don't want to build network with your B2C customers because like that's not networking. They're like if you have a bakery, people come and buy bread from you. Like those people are not your network, right? But if you're selling baked goods to companies, then you have to figure out, okay, like which geographical location I am in. Let's say I'm in Mississauga, or I don't know, New York, wherever, how far a reach I can have, and then who buys those breads in a company? What size of a company I'm going to attract? Am I going to sell to, I don't know, JP Morgans of the world, or I'm going to sell to mom and pop shops? And in that case, like, who are the decision makers? How can I get in front of them? And then figure out what's that goes on to their day-to-day life. But a lot of times, like, I sometimes like I know if I want to get in touch with a company or organization, and I just try to like kind of spend some time on the LinkedIn page, figure out who's doing what, kind of who's connected with who, and then like basically start kind of trying to penetrate somehow. You send messages, like you select people that are most likely to respond, send a message to them, and then the second tier, the third tier. And but once you're in, like a lot of times you can ask around, you can figure out, what's going on in that organization, and how can you basically take it from there. But that would be my strategy.
Okay, so because you're using LinkedIn as a most effective tool, but there are also other social media platforms these days people are using. So Hamid, what do you think? Of course, with the LinkedIn, YouTube, all other social media is tools important. Any quick tools and tips that how other platforms, including LinkedIn and YouTube, can be beneficial for the networking. And as mentioned by Saeed, that I agree on that our first message should not be related to selling and buying. So I'm just asking. It's a very raw question. I mean, how to just for as a new woman entrepreneur, I'm a new woman entrepreneur. I just want to introduce my business to companies or any single any other professional. How to start? Simple.
There are two ways we need to understand. As Saeed mentioned that, okay, the number one thing is about personal branding. Now, what sort of leads do you actually get? So we are talking about business, so I'm using the word leads. So leads would mean getting business or the first customer inquiry that he might be interested in your services or product or whatever the aim of your end networking is. So for example, you're selling services to probably plumbers in the United States, right? Okay, you have two options. Number one option is that you get outbound leads, right? To get the outbound leads, you have to, as Mr. Said mentioned, that you have to go in their communities. You have to go in their communities. You have to finalize a target audience. You cannot just open your throttle to doctors or engineers, because if you're targeting plumbers in United States, plumbers, let's say in Florida, then you have to, first of all, finalize the target audience, and then you can use different mode of communications to reach them. For example, it could be finding plumbing communities in United States or in Florida and becoming a part and doing the comments. That could be one thing. Then yes, LinkedIn outreach, that's number two. Okay, there are tools available. For example, another tool is called Apollo. It's Apollo. Apollo has a huge database of contacts that you can
Okay.
actually pay them $100 a month. You can either extract the emails or do the email marketing, or you can actually send them like a DM, or you can run email marketing funnel using their data as well. Okay. You can do one-to-one over Instagram, you can one-to-one over the Facebook. Okay. All of these methods which I told you, and there are more methods as well, but all of these methods which I told you are called like outbound lead generation, where you're networking, you're finalizing the audience, and then you're trying to DM them because you find them the right audience. The number two way, which I personally like, is building yourself as an authority. Okay. Now you want to penetrate into, again, plumbing businesses in United States. Okay. If you want them to contact you, your business, uh, yes, number one thing is you finalize them. Number two thing, becoming an authority would mean that starting from micro influencer, set up your YouTube channel. Now, once you set up your YouTube channel, people give work to experts. So emerge yourself being an expert. For example, Mr. Saeed is growth consultant. Hamid Mahmood is a digital consultant, right? So if people had to give the business, they will be happy to give me the business for digital consultant and for overall growth, Mr. Saeed, because they know that Mr. Hamid and Mr. Saeed is an expert. Okay, how do you know that Mr. Saeed is an expert or Mr. Hamid is an expert? Because they have created their own ecosystem into the YouTube, into the Facebook communities, into the LinkedIn, and they often go through different networking events, doing the public sessions, and by listening their thoughts and by listening their roadmaps, people start feeling, okay, this guy knows, this guy is an expert. And if I have to do business or if I have to communicate, or probably there could be someone else doing the podcast and may not be Mr. Said or Hamid. And you got in our networking because you understand that we are an authority and we know what we have to talk about. So that's called like inbound lead generation. And that actually happens when you create your own aura of the expertise that you have. For example, I could emerge myself as an expert growth specialist for plumbing businesses in United States. So I help plumbers to grow their businesses, right? And for that, I create the content onto the YouTube. For that, I write ebooks. For that, I write like proper books. For that, I have a community as well where I am supporting Facebook communities of plumbers on how to make money, or how to make a website, or probably how to grow or how to scale their businesses, right? So once I have those footprints online, and some maybe I go once or twice a year for their networking sessions as well, you start getting inbound leads. And that's the best method, and for the high ticket clients, because people are actually contacting you themselves, because they see yourself as an authority. Yeah.
Okay. Say, do you want to add something? For example, if I'm talking about networking starts from the content, the relevant content is very important. This is why I understood, as he mentioned. So, for example, there are two types of services. Some are offering services, some are offering their products. So, for the networking, for example, if I'm creating any post, particularly for the networking, so do you think that what should be the like content at the start? And is there any difference between when I'm contacting people to sell my services, or when I'm contacting people to sell my products? So relevant content, how we select it?
Okay. I think like for selling a service, as Hamid mentioned, you want to come across as someone that can actually deliver the service. So in that sense, like you want to create like content that demonstrates your leadership or thought leadership. You want to have some authentic world views when it comes to business, and you want to have you want to be able to defend those world views should there be a need for it. But in terms of like selling your product, well, I'm much of a fan of an indirect kind of marketing rather than direct, or even in reach out. Like if my goal is, for example, to build a partnership with somebody, I wouldn't really mention that in the or something. I would be a little bit like try to just get them on a call, and then and see if and qualify them, even if they're the right person for me to talk to or to work with. And then like slowly you would basically, get them to where you want. That's how for you to learn about, I don't know, empowerment and the strategies, business strategies, then I'm getting some value out of it, right? Already. So I'm happy to follow you. And
First question I will ask from attendees to Hamid. How important is networking securing funding for startups? Of course, because
So, and then there are two different aspects. One is third world country like Pakistan, or countries where there are risk issues, there are trust issues, and then the second or one world countries, there are less subcontinent countries. However, once you go back to the one world countries, let's say United States, or then all you have to do is, yes, still you have to do some of your MVP, but your social security, your documentation, your credit score would actually determine all of these things easily from there as well. However, even in those cases, so the number one thing is you complete your MVP. Number two is you have to network to the right people. And in this case, the right people would involve the rich people who are successful in their business. Number one, the rich people who are not who are ready to make passive income uh, without their much involvement. Okay, I give you a seed of $50,000 today. You have a perfect working MVP product. What sort of return would I expect from you, let's say in 6 months or in a year on recurring basis? So finding the people like who are looking actively for passive income, and once you have the pool of those people together, and you book them to explain your MVP and your presentation, then it should work. If you try to close the deal in DMs or in short meetings, you should not do that. Give them time, take them to the coffee, take them to probably any XYZ meetings where you call them to the office or you go there in their office and explain your scenario, and then build your strong relationship. Try to build the trust among those people who are going to give you the money, because the most difficult thing in the world is getting the money out of someone's pocket.
Okay, I will ask the same question to you, Said. What's your take on this regarding how to utilize networking to raise the funds?
Well, I think like my perspective and my lens is going to be mostly around the startups, which might not be very applicable to like mom and pop shops, or if one wants to access funding to, let's say, start a bakery or something. In such cases, typically entrepreneurs maybe get started with some sort of a loan that probably is secured against some sort of an asset. And I'm not too sure about how things happen in different countries, but my point of view and my point of reference is primarily focused on Canada. In terms of the startups, though, like so the way you can access funding really depends on your type of product, the industry you're in, and the climate. Kind of like we are right now in some sort of like finance winter, especially for early stage tech, because of the interest rate climate that is imposed by financial institutions on financial institutions. But generally speaking, a rule of thumb, I think the biggest mistake I see startups making is that they really think that the money that they're raising, it's paid, like the most important factor is the valuation. Actually, the valuation is the least important factor on achieve and how much the rest of estate, angel stage, Series B, or what have you. And networking is actually very important because if you really think about it, like if I come to you right now, like Javier, and be like, okay, give me, I don't know, $200,000, what would you do, right? Are you gonna give it to me, like just right that like that? Another time, like Elon Musk or like a very well-known entrepreneur with a track record of making companies, exiting companies, you're not gonna give the money to me unless you really know me. And what I tell, like as an investor, because I'm also a part of Creative Forum Canada, which is a network of angel investors, and I see deals like every day from entrepreneurs from all over the world. What ends up happening is, you don't want to see a dot of someone that you're giving money to. You want to see the i.e. a trend. So if I'm going to invest in somebody, I'm not gonna do it right away. Especially if they're first time founder, especially if I'm uncertain about their ability to execute on the plan that they're proposing. I'm gonna wait and see if they can deliver on some of this smaller milestones that they claim they will, and basically like socialize with them. And it's all about comes down to liking someone. To be honest with you, like you don't want to do business because with someone you don't like, and when you have somebody that has an equity in your company, you have to keep them happy. They drive a lot of decisions in your business. And in my own of experience, like when we were going through the exit, thoughts on my mind was to how to balance between the wants and the priorities of my investors versus and also my own priorities in a way that the deal still flows through. So you can't really dismiss them. You have to often report to them. So you have to really like them and they have to really like you. And that's like all about for your after a lot of times, like depending on the stage of fundraising, you're looking for that one person, whether it's an angel or a VC or a high net worth individual, family office, a company, whatever, to just take the first step and be like, I'm in. That and lead, quote unquote, lead around. So once that happens, like a lot of times that person can syndicate. They have other LPs that they work with. They can bring some capital and close around. And after that, things flow very quickly. So I think my suggestion would be to don't be shy to discuss your idea, your vision with people, but also deliver. Like don't talk only goes that's in like mileage. Like people like at some point want to see action from you, and that's where you really need to show some competence in terms of the stuff that you say you're gonna do. And if it's like a med tech company, it's totally different. For example, with a retail company, with a fintech company, because traction, progress, definition is different when you're looking at medtech versus when you're looking at marketplace versus when you're looking at a SaaS company or different industries, different. But you gotta really show, step-by-step traction. And I think, especially for first-time founders, I strongly recommend having a sound board of advisory for your company. And these are people that are really like you and they believe in your vision and a lot of time give that social proof that you need as a first time founder, especially if you're going into a regulated space and or a space in which, like there is some sort of a liability involved if the customer chooses you over the competitor.
Okay, very comprehensive answer. Okay, I have one question from attendees. Hamid, as Said mentioned that we have to, have to be very, specific while approaching for through networking to do fundraising, anything. There are so many people are selling the same services, same product, right? So how can startups effectively communicate a unique value proposition that we are different from others? So any tip you can mention?
Yes, definitely. As mentioned, I'm writing a book on that. And so in the last 1 year, we have worked in our communities as well about creating strong brands, right? And it could be your personal brand and it could be a company that you represent. And while doing the branding, you start getting the unique value proposition as well, right? Unique value proposition would be, okay, what value are you giving which others are not able to give? I give you an example. I live in New York City and I live in Lahore. Like my office is at both the locations, right? Um, and we sell Pakistani resources in United States. Now, what was happening before, that the IT centers in Pakistan, they were selling the resources, but they were selling the resources in their Pakistani time zone. What we did, we started selling the resources to United States Eastern time zones, or maybe Pacific time zones, depending on what the client wants. We almost converted our operations back to 24/7. Number two, we converted our agency into maybe a model like Qatar Airways, where you give premium customer support experience, right? Okay, once you give the premium customer support experience, then you tend to get some good reviews. By getting good reviews, you start getting two things. Number one, the reviews itself, which could be posted onto the third parties, like maybe Trustpilot, or in our agency niche, it's in like Clutch or Upcity or Top Developers or Good Firms or whatever. You start getting reviews and you start showing the track back to the people. Okay, at this stage, maybe at a mid-level organization, they have a proof record of delivering to those people, and they've got some good reviews, and they are like public reviews. In the United States, like Better Business Bureau, where people can actually go and make some good comments as well. Okay, number two thing is the case studies itself. And okay, your company operations resulted into value to the people, and then that value was acknowledged by the customers itself. So if I have to invest somewhere, I'll just check out 2 or 3 things. Number one, the first thing I will ask, what is your track record, who you are, right? And then, as Mr. Saeed mentioned, that I will not even talk to anyone I don't feel comfortable with, right? So yes, networking with the right people and people of your mindset is important. That's very important. Yes. Number two thing is, I'll right away start with, okay, what is your track record? How's your application? Probably in, let's say I'm talking about digital product. How's your application? Is it a stable one? Okay, who have used it? And what has been the recommendation of the past customers for maybe using this application? That would be my second or third question. My next question would be, what sort of ROI are you getting, right? Are you giving, as I mentioned you, and illness could have its unique value proposition. So depending on like all of those propositions and being, you give confidence to the people or investors to start thinking about investing seed in your company.
Okay. Overall, we have covered all the areas. So one question I will ask both of the panelists that you have work with the startups, you're doing mentoring and while guiding and mentoring the startups. Usually they are doing while networking. I will take answers from both of you, starting from Said.
Okay, for sure. I think the most common mistake that I see is that when people, particularly when they seek advice, they still have some sort of ego, and they're worried about being wrong, or not knowing the stuff, or coming across as weak or not top of their game. I think we need to realize that it's okay completely. We're not gonna like, even if I don't know, the CEO of a field, it doesn't mean that I know everything and every detail. If I knew it, like I probably wouldn't really seek mentorship or advisory. So when I invite, this is what I tell to like all of my mentees, whether at Next or MTA or DMZ or whatnot, that like, you know, I'm not gonna judge you if you don't know anything. I don't know a lot of things myself. I'm not gonna come pretend that I know everything. But like it's important to show that you're on the path to learning rather than like knowing everything. And in this journey and pursuit, I think having access, particularly for your target audience, having access to communities like the ones that you're building is quite important, because like, you know, a lot of times like we want to create an environment for people that they feel, you know, heard, they feel they're not judged, they feel like they're you know, they're being acknowledged, and then that's actually very important and very, very key. I've had the pleasure of actually like founding like a startup that I had with a female co-founder. So it's a big value to me. And if I may just add, in terms of the value proposition, what makes you unique to an investor, a lot of times like people make decisions that are at a human level. If you can be an amazing business, like with great metrics, like amazing roadmap, IP, but sometimes, you know what, people just invest for personal passions and things like that. So you gotta like, also I advise people to play into that, like not fake, but if you genuinely, you have an agenda or you have a mandate, and you have to mention it. And some people, they find they want to support that mandate, particularly if people are in building the startups in healthcare, in building startups in social, like social related startup. Like for example, your company, if you're raising funds, you know, like I think you need to go to people that care about the cause you're supporting, and they would, like, you know, want to help you already, you know, so because you're doing something that they always wanted to do, but they're too busy for doing. So, you know, like things like that can create like really a small differentiations that can sometimes.
You should introduce yourself first. This is very important. So, Hamid, what's your take on this? What are usual mistakes usually startups do while networking?
A lot of mistakes, but since I work a lot with service industry and not like a brick and mortar businesses, The most common mistake which I find is doing everything yourself. Yes, it's okay when you're at early stage to create an MVP and making sure that your operations run fine. But then I've written that in my book as well. There is a model which is called entrepreneurship operating system, which tells you about how the things look from the top to the bottom, like who are the integrators, who are the salespeople, how their hierarchies are managed, who are the production people, who are the admin people, who are the marketing people, or finance and admin and all that, right? So you eventually have to, dissect your roles by training and empowerment to the next people. However, the many of the companies were stuck at 10, 15, or maximum $20,000 revenue per month, or maybe $250,000 per annum, is because they're doing everything themselves, and they are afraid of sharing their knowledge. They are afraid of sharing their responsibility with other people, or they might not be a good mentor. So the right way is, after you understand as a person, you eventually need people to do your job. And in order for them to do your job, you have to train them. And in order to train them, you have to write the documents and the procedures, and then train them accordingly with a change management style. Like, give them some time for the change management as well, and then set up the compliance. So number one thing is, the biggest mistake that a lot of startup owners do is they try to do everything themselves. Rather, I think that they should hire, once they start getting some momentum and some money and some profits, they should hire people at different levels to do the job. And then number two is, people are skilled, but they're not good in business and sales, right? So you could be an Amazon expert, you could be a AI developer, or maybe a Python developer, or maybe a um, any XYZ guru in your niche, but understanding of business and understanding how the sales work is completely different science. And the mistakes that people do as a startup owner is they're not ready to study. And you might have seen in my social media, I raise a huge voice about reading books. And that is because I'm a part of the masterminds in United States, where there are 7, 8, and 9 figure uh, in dollars business owners, and their habits tell that they study a lot of books per year. And those books are not entirely based on the skills they have. They mostly have skills, but they study the behaviors of the people. They study that, okay, what 8 figure and 9 figure business are doing, or how 9 figure business are doing, or how the hierarchy is working. And then they slowly relate that with themselves and try to implement. So my recommendation is usually to the people I consult with is start reading the books, and reading the books to actually starting to understand that even how the seed works. What is the psychology of the people who are judging you? And this might not be known, but just because you're a Python developer, you have to understand the business and marketing skills. So that's the biggest mistake.
Okay, thank you so much, Saeed and Hamid, for your valuable insight. Thank you so much, Nadia. Actually, she joined us as attendee. Nadia, thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, you can ask.
I would love to ask a question. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Should I?
Yeah, please carry on.
Hamid might know me a little. Hi, Said. I started as a solo freelancer in 2017. And 25K a small agency who are earning in between $6,000 to $10,000 a month. But in parallel, I am very passionate about climate change. So I am building a actually started working on an MVP. So the name of the product is Climate Crunch, and it recently got some spotlight from US Embassy as well. I just want to know that is that something I'm doing right or wrong? Because all that I'm raising from the agency, I'm draining myself and putting that all of that money into the development of that MVP. So do you think that is something a startup should do or not? Like we are putting 100% of whatever coming, whatever is the profit from the agency, from the freelance agency, we are putting that money directly into the product development. Actually, the MVP development of that product.
Said,
So
one answer?
can I? Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. I can
Go
start
ahead,
and
go
then
ahead.
maybe you can. Yes,
Yeah.
okay. Actually, like this is very interesting because I'm currently like in Dubai and I had the pleasure of attending the COP actually in yeah, COP 28. So like
Unfortunately, I
I shared this.
yeah, I
Yeah,
didn't
it was
receive the
an
visa at time.
amazing. Oh, that's a miss. Hopefully next one. I think it's in Azerbaijan if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's wonderful that you have that passion, and I would love to learn more about what you're doing and your company, and maybe I'll be able to give a little bit more of a, you know, targeted advice. But generally speaking, the biggest difference between an SME and like a small business and a startup is, well, there's multiple differences, but one major point of differentiation is that startup requires capital. So at some point of time, you need to raise, either institutional or angel money, and you have to really think about where you want to be in order to be quote unquote investable. And this is a process that's going to take time. I suppose this is going to be your first startup that you're going to run. And I want to know who else is on the team, like what is the product? What is the challenge? Is this a real problem? Like how are you going to solve it? Like how big is the market? But now is actually a very good time for you to be able to get some support behind you because a lot of people are starting to think about these challenges and topics. So my suggestion would be for you to allocate resources. Yes, if you're passionate about the project, definitely. But with having the goal of actually raising it, because you're not going to be able to bootstrap this to success. It's just like virtually impossible. And when it's possible, you're going to be like pushed out of the market by a new company that comes into play with and has access to institutional funding. So startups, they grow, they have to show that, the curve, they have to show aggressive growth. And in order to make that happen, they need to have access to capital. I think it's good that you're building an MVP, but I would take a pause on product development and then try to really create some traction from whether it's like, I don't know if you're a B2B LOIs from potential users, if you're B2C use cases, some signups showing like network effects, churn if you're a SaaS, the CACs, LTV, and then start socializing that with people that care about this and want to get behind your company. You're not going to be able to make that on your revenues that you're currently having. Yes, that's
Okay,
my
thank you.
2 cents.
Yes, Hamish, quick reply.
Quick reply is that always treat your agency as an entity as well. So your agency is a different startup, which we normally do not think, and even I used to do this mistake as well. Your agency is also a startup. Your product-based business is also a startup. The mistake that we also do is we eat up all the money. Now that money could be, okay, if I'm getting a profit from agency, let's say at early stage of, for example, $5,000 a month, I'm getting a profit. Now, mistakes that we do, we eat up all the profit, thinking that, okay, that's my cash in home, and I can utilize that to buy the car, to probably build a beautiful home, or maybe travel across the world because I made money, which is absolutely fine. But remember one thing, that it's equally important especially in Pakistan's scenario, because in Pakistan, services make more money than startups, because we don't have a startup supported ecosystem. Uh, and then you should try to actually make your agency more powerful by using that revenue, or for example, withdrawn after 3 months, and then probably keep 10%, 20% out of maybe another